Good evening and welcome to DITV's The Update. I'm Johnny Valtman and we'll be talking tonight about a rare primary in Iowa City, Iowa Democrats adjusting the January caucus and the U.S.'s reaction to Hamas attack on Israel. Later, we'll check in to see where presidential candidates are in the state and a profile on a local candidate. Tonight, I will be joined by Jordan Tover, Jayce Bertrand, and Cara Dulin. Here, you will find information from Iowa City, Iowa, and the United States. With every election adding more pressure to Americans, we want to provide non-biased information to the public and let you decide who and what you want to vote for. Kicking it off, we're going to stay here in Iowa City, where at City Hall they are experiencing a lot of non-common events inside and outside of it. Jordan Tover is here with us, and he's going to tell us more about City Hall's recent activity.
Thanks, Johnny. Residents held a climate protest at City Hall on Sunday. Protesters dumped trash on the front steps in hopes that it would encourage the city to do its part in the fight against climate change.
The demand was that we want more trash cans to help with the waste management. We're hoping that people will bother their city council representatives, shoot them emails, come up to meetings. Although this is just trash, it is symbolic of the bigger issue of climate change in general.
Afterwards, protesters picked up the trash and disposed of it properly. Now staying at City Hall, Iowa City held a rare primary election for its District A City Council seat today. The city hasn't held a district-only primary election since 1985 in a regular city election cycle. There's 3 candidates, but only 2 can advance to November 7th city and school election. Contesting for those 2 spots are Tim Borchardt, Laura Burgess, and incumbent Pauline Taylor. Something else of note is that Burgess is the current seat holder for the at-large spot on the council. The goals of the candidates all differ between them, leading to a diverse pool of ideas among them. Burgess says that she wants to see the council work together more on issues facing the community. Borchardt takes the approach of supporting the Iowa City Police Department in an effort to reduce crime. Taylor says that she wants to continue to make progress on issues within the city. And as we've been recording, the results for this special primary have come in. Laura Burgess and Pauline Taylor have advanced to the November 7th election, gathering 58.4% and 25% of the vote respectively. Tim Borchardt only had 16.5% of the vote, which means he is eliminated. And now I'm going to send it back to Johnny.
Thank you, Jordan. And keeping it in the state of Iowa, this is the first election cycle since the Iowa Democratic Committee voted to end the state's first in the nation status. Cara Dulin is with us and has more on what it will look like for January's Democratic caucus. Cara?
Thank you, Johnny. Iowa's Democratic Party is trying to maintain the state's lead-off position on the presidential nominating calendar without violating the new national party lineup for 2024. The party announced that it will hold a caucus on January 15th, but will not release the results until Super Tuesday on March 5th. The Democratic National Committee had voted to end Iowa's first in the nation caucuses earlier this year and let South Carolina replace it. Following the abundant technical glitches at the 2020 caucus, Iowa is now holding voting through the mail. Registration for Iowa Democrats will open on November 1st, with presidential preference cards being sent out beginning January 12th, 2024. Iowa Republicans will also be holding their caucus on January 15th, but they will continue with the traditional in-person voting. Meanwhile, Iowa's congressional delegation has been critical of some of their Republican colleagues for pushing out House Speaker Kevin McCarthy last week. Until the U.S. House picks a new speaker, they're unable to do any work. Another Republican who has been critical of this choice is Mariannette Miller Meeks, who says that deposing McCarthy will be detrimental to the House Republicans' agenda. Jayce will have a little bit more for you on that, but for now I'm going to send it on back to Johnny.
Thank you, Cara. And there has been some national breaking news going around this last week. Right now we have Jayce Bertrand, who is live in the newsroom, who's going to catch us up on some of the bigger national stories.
Thanks, Johnny. On Saturday, President Biden declared support for Israel in the wake of several attacks on the nation.
When I spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu this morning, I told him the United States stands with the people of Israel in the face of these terrorist assaults. Israel has the right to defend itself and its people, full stop.
However, many Republicans are criticizing Biden for his speech, claiming that his policies allowed the attacks to be carried out. Criticisms are continuing to ramp up as Biden announced that several Americans are currently being held hostage by Hamas. On Saturday, former New Jersey governor and current presidential candidate Chris Christie posted his criticisms to X, stating, quote, "Biden's appeasement of Israel's enemies has invited this war against Israel. This terrorism is funded by Biden's idiotic release of $6 billion to the Iranians." While it is true that Biden unfroze $6 billion worth of assets in Iranian accounts during a hostage exchange, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken claimed that no U.S. taxpayer dollars were spent during the exchange and that no money had been taken from the account so far. However, while the White House continues to push back against these criticisms, many Republicans are convinced that this is yet another war allowed by the Biden administration. Back in Washington, the race for Speaker of the House seat has slowed little in the face of the war in Israel. Two candidates have emerged as frontrunners for the position, Representative Jim Jordan from Ohio and Representative Steve Scalise from Louisiana. On Monday, Republicans returned to Washington in preparation of their nomination for the Speaker. On Tuesday, they debated in an open forum as to who they should nominate, while the Democrats held a similar forum, nominating Representative Hakeem Jeffries. On Wednesday, Republicans will hold a secret vote in order to determine their official nominee for the position. In January of this year, former Speaker Kevin McCarthy made history when it took 15 different votes to confirm him. And after his historic removal from office, no one is sure where the House will stand once a new Speaker is sworn in. And that's all I have on the national front. I'm going to send it back to Johnny.
Thanks, Jayce. And reeling it back into Iowa City, this week we are highlighting a local candidate who is hoping to make her way to Washington, D.C. A law professor at the University of Iowa, Christina Bohannon served in the Iowa House of Representatives from 2021 to 2023 for District 85. Running for Iowa's 2nd Congressional District in 2022, she lost to Marionette Miller Meeks. In August, Bohannon announced her plans to challenge Meeks to represent the district in D.C. In her 2 years in Des Moines, Bohannon worked to provide more funding for public schooling, help small businesses recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. She also was a part of legislation to crack down on human trafficking and bring awareness to elderly abuse. If elected to Congress, Bohannon is ready to take on major corporations who price gouge, take steps to make Iowa into a clean energy state, invest in public schooling, along with working for more technical and vocational jobs in the state. She also is looking to protect voting rights and have better access to health care throughout the state. Outside of her teachings and campaign, Bohannon spends her time staying fit with running, hiking, and biking, and she also spends time with her family, which includes her husband and her daughter. Next week, we will take a look at Bohannon's opponent, Marionette Miller Meeks. Now, in the social media world, information is spread like wildfire, whether it's right, wrong, or just plain made up. Jayce is here with 3 trending bits of information that are not entirely true. Take it away, Jayce.
Yes, Johnny, and with a lot going on this week, there's some information being passed around. To start, let's circle back to that claim of the Biden administration giving Iran $6 billion. This is only half true. Last month, the Biden administration unfroze Iranian oil assets that were being held in a restricted South Korean account in exchange for 5 Americans who had been wrongfully detained by the Iranian government. So rather than giving Iran back the money, the White House allowed them to access already existing money. No U.S. taxpayer dollars were used in the exchange, and there continues to be no monetary trade between Iran and the U.S. Next, we're going to come back to Iowa, where presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy claims that his campaign vehicle was intentionally hit by a protester who opposed his views on the Ukrainian war. However, Des Moines police who responded to the incident have refuted this claim, saying that it was an accidental collision from a woman who was backing out of her parking spot. The woman claims she had no intention of protesting, and despite the police's conclusions, Ramaswamy's campaign stands by their claims. Finally, we're going to head to the southern border, where social media users claim that the Biden administration has been giving upwards of $2,200 to each illegal immigrant who enters the country. While it is true that the government occasionally gives payments, though none as high as $2,200, this is reserved for refugees and asylum seekers. Furthermore, Biden has actually been stamping down on illegal immigration, drawing criticism from fellow Democrats after construction began to continue a wall along the southern border. And that's all I have for Fact Check this time, so I'm going to toss it back to Johnny.
Thank you, Jason. Some really interesting claims this week, and now we're going to shift focus here. With the first GOP caucus taking place in less than 3 months, Iowa continues to be a hot potential candidate. Cara is going to rejoin us here, and she's going to tell us stopping in Iowa, which are planning on stopping by soon.
Yes, Johnny, we're continuing to see Republican nominees making multiple stops in Iowa ahead of the first GOP caucus. Last week, multiple presidential candidates made their way around Iowa. Tim Scott made a stop on Wednesday, and former Vice President Mike Pence spent Friday and Saturday going to smaller towns and catching a high school football game. Asa Hutchinson also walked in a Ottumwa Oktoberfest parade on Saturday. Former President Trump made an appearance in Waterloo and Cedar Falls on Saturday as well, and will return to the state on October 16th. Ron DeSantis stopped yesterday in Lamar and has also moved around 20 campaign staffers to Iowa as he attempts to gain back numbers in the polls. Nikki Haley also went to Boone on Monday, where she voiced her support for Israel with the ongoing conflict.
I would tell Israel, whatever it is you need to not just get your country back, to eliminate the terrorists, we should do.
On Monday, Texas Representative Will Hurd dropped out of the race. Hurd once one Republican nominee to challenge Trump, and he endorsed former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley for the Republican ticket. The Democratic ticket also lost a potential nominee as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. dropped out of the Democratic race between President Biden and Marianne Williamson. Kennedy and his super PAC will see him run as an independent and will take on the Republican and Democratic presidential nominees in 2024. Now I'll throw it back to Johnny.
Thanks, Cara. And every week we decide on a topic that intrigues us, provokes some thought, and something we think you should consider. This week, I'm bringing back up Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s independent run for president. Since 2004, independent candidates made the ballot, where they averaged 2,671,766 votes in those elections, which only accounted for 2% of all who voted. Historically, independent presidential nominees fail to garner votes and usually become side notes in elections. However, according to a recent poll conducted by NBC, only 32% of pollers are interested in a rematch between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump in 2024. Also, many outlets are speculating that Kennedy's move to being an independent may hurt Trump more than Biden if both win their respective nominations. If we do see a rematch between these two, there's a high chance that a lot of attention heads Kennedy Jr.'s way. But I'm not saying this is going to put him right in the White House, but if voters are wary on both candidates, Kennedy will be the alternate option. It is highly unlikely, though, he will touch 1872's Horace Greeley, who won 44% of the country's votes as an independent. And Kennedy Jr., he may remember, and he may be able to pass 1968's George Wallace's 9 million votes he got back in 1968. Or, for all I know or you know, he may end up like Kanye West's 60,000 votes back in 2020. We'll just have to wait and see when election time rolls around. Thank you for watching the update, where you'll find news and politics from local to nationwide coverage. We'll see you again next week with more updates, stories, and candidates. I'm Johnny Valtman. Know your politics and have a great night.